We take you back now to one of our leading stories tonight, which is that acting Deputy Chief Justice, this is the Chief Justice who is looking into the Commission of Inquiry into rot at the South African Police, Mbuyiseli Madlanga, saying that the Commission of Inquiry probing allegations of criminality in police and the judiciary has begun its work. He says that his first consultation has been scheduled with the KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner, Lieutenant General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi, and of course, he's the one who made claims of political interference in police investigations. For more on this, we're joined now by Accountability Now Director Advocate Paul Hoffman, Judges Matters researcher Mbuyiseli Benjamin will come on a bit later on. We also have political analyst Dr. Mkhwanazi, as well as Outers CEO Wayne Duvenage. Asking you tonight that question: do you think this inquiry will get to the bottom of the claims made by Lieutenant General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi? Send us your comments and questions on WhatsApp 072-110-5584. Call us on 010-594-6010 or engage us on X at Newzroom 405. Gentlemen, good evening. Good to have you, and thank you very much for coming on this evening. When you hear, Wayne, let me begin with you, that the commission is ready to begin. I mean, I suppose one would take you back to the State Capture Commission of Inquiry. When we heard that it was ready to begin, the next thing that came after that, where we had venue issues and there was back and forth on that. There were issues around facilities for the evidence leaders to do their work. There was also delay and non-cooperation with some of the witnesses that needed to come and so on and so forth. So when you hear now that this commission is ready to go, what comes to your mind?
Well, I guess we hope that the commissioner has contacted the previous commissioner of the Zondo Commission, Judge Zondo himself, and said, give me your thoughts, give me your learnings, tell me what to expect from the word go as we get out the starting blocks. And a lot of lessons would have been learned there that he's going to have to try and mitigate as he sets out to get this commission going. But he has got tight timelines. The president wants reports within 3 months and another report within 6 months. Obviously, our thoughts are this is so wide, it's going to take a long time. But I guess, there's a lot that has to happen, and I don't think that it's going to be smooth sailing. So it'll be interesting to see how he gets the work underway in the next few weeks.
Yeah, well, while we're there, I mean, the chairperson already, I mean, the first thing that he says is that the timelines do appear to be quite tight, and I'm quoting him here verbatim, saying that the consultations, the investigations are likely going to reveal more, and this might lead us into a place where we are already asking for an extension. That's certainly not something that maybe South Africans in some quarters want to hear, but certainly opposition political parties would not want to hear, because that means more money. Wayne?
I don't think we want to hear that. You know, we need to get to the bottom of what's going on here as quickly as possible. But there's no doubt that it's going to be very difficult to get some semblance of a meaningful report within 3 months or 6. And so extensions is going to be a reality of this commission. But, you know, our history of commissions is a bit frustrating. And I guess the question is, what's the alternative? And I know there are alternatives. It'll be interesting to ventilate that.
Yeah. Dr. Mtimka, part of what is happening here is stage management, I suppose, in a political arena. There is a political principle implicated in these particular allegations. The president of the ANC is expected to act quite swiftly against his comrade. Has he done enough? And the fact that it's going ahead as quickly as he had announced it, and we are here now, does it play better for them politically?
Good evening to you and your viewers, Thabo, as well as your guests there. I think it's important to note how things are changing in terms of the culture of doing things in the ANC in particular. That we have seen here, especially action being taken by a provincial level lieutenant general, that has culminated within weeks of explosive allegations. In somebody being suspended, we can talk about the weaknesses of that approach. In a commission being established that looks into matters that relate to national security. In fact, affect national security, and that the president, though still remaining a key member of the ANC that is known by its own admission or the admission of its own senior members to have a culture of smallanyana skeletons, understands that the nature of the public outcry that followed Lieutenant General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi's explosive allegations was of such a nature that there needed to be immediate action. For me, I think that that's a well-played, process. The process itself has played out swiftly enough that there is a process is in motion in order to reveal what is the true nature of this beast that we're looking into. And though I also accept that the commission, is not sending the best signal in responding to that reporter, saying, well, we do think that we may need to exercise that right to extend based on the, what the terms of reference permit. But I think that it is actually prudent because it would be an example of how he has learned from the previous, the Zondo Commission.
What has this taught us about how political parties will actually use that, I suppose, as a political football? I mean, we already saw at the weekend, the EFF, during its celebration in Khayelitsha, where Julius Malema says, these things of commissions are just a ruse, really.
Yeah, so it's political parties, but also political players inside the ANC. Yeah, they are critical. Obviously, they must be critical because the best way, in some of the instances, could have been to institute immediate criminal investigations and prosecute the people. But commissions in their nature are able to do the initial lead generation work that helps us to understand the true extent of the problem, or in fact, the multiple dimensions of it, so that law enforcement agencies who play a role in prosecution may actually have a relatively clearer basis for them to move forward with cases. And it will be the same political parties that actually make use of those initial findings in order to bring more accountability, I hope, in the system. But I'm saying also it's not just the political parties, but players within even the ANC. It's the first time that, in my view, there hasn't been significant, long-drawn contestation of the process itself of giving effect to what needs to happen, and that's because the ANC itself recognizes that they don't have much here in terms of frustrating the process by their internal processes. You've seen how rhetoric in party events and other things has cast some aspersions on the process itself. Imagine if there wasn't such a huge public outcry that actually limited how much interference they could do even in this process itself of what to do with the allegations.
Yeah. Advocate Hoffman, when we then look at the nature of what is going to be investigated here, already around this particular matter, there are allegations of murder, there are allegations of the police themselves being involved, and how likely are we going to get witnesses who are willing to come out publicly and testify at this particular inquiry, considering, the history of how witness protection has gone in South Africa in matters of this nature?
I do hope that the potential witnesses in this case have taken note of what happened to Jacob Zuma when he refused to go and give evidence before the Zondo Commission, was found guilty of contempt of court, and was sentenced to a term of imprisonment. But I'm not sure that we're going to get that far that quickly in this Madlanga Commission of Inquiry, because before any of that happens, and on Wednesday this week, there's going to be an argument in the Constitutional Court as to whether the Madlanga Commission should have been appointed at all. There is an argument being put up by the MK party that no legitimate purpose of government is served by appointing the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry. And if the court agrees with that argument, well, there will be no Commission of Inquiry. And I think a Commission of Inquiry is really a device that is made available to the leader of the executive branch of government, the president, to park a political hot potato and allow it to cool off in a neutral venue for however long it takes to cool it. I'm not sure that we can cool what General Mkhwanazi is complaining about in any time frame that could apply to a Commission of Inquiry. The inwardness of the problem is that the ANC government has chosen to ignore or avoid properly implementing the decision of the Constitutional Court in the Glenister litigation, in which that court said that a body outside the control of the cabinet should be created in South Africa to deal effectively with corruption. And that's never happened. We've always had executive control over the NPA. The Minister of Justice is entitled to exercise final responsibility over the National Prosecuting Authority. And the Minister of Police is in charge. He creates the policy of the police.
Yeah.
And that being so, we have a situation in which the events of which Mkhwanazi complains are really things that ought not to have happened at all if the Glenister ruling had been properly implemented. At the same time, and last Wednesday, former Chief Justice Zondo stood up at a Indaba called together the anti-graft Indaba of the South African Council of Churches and encouraged the people there to get behind the idea that is being punted by Glynis Breitenbach, who was the shadow Minister of Justice in the last Parliament and is now the co-chair of the Justice Portfolio Committee in the National Assembly, to get on and create a new anti-corruption commission as a Chapter 9 institution. Now, that is quite a different animal to a Commission of Inquiry. A Commission of Inquiry is a tool of the executive that is used to open up, investigate a complex factual matrix. And it certainly will be complex in this case because we know that more than 100 dockets are involved in this move, taking the dockets away from the political killings unit in KZN,
right,
and parking them ever so conveniently on the desk of Lieutenant General Shadrack Sibia in Pretoria, where nothing has been done with them ever since. That unraveling that is certainly going to take more than 3 or 6 months. But if the commission gets going, gets past the first hurdle, which is the challenge in the Constitutional Court,
right,
it would be well advised, in my respectful opinion, to indicate in its first report, the one that is due in 3 months' time, that the nature of the problem is that we do not have the kind of anti-corruption machinery that has been ordered up by the Constitutional Court. And that is why there's a problem. And the solution to the problem is to create it, which, with the encouragement of former Chief Justice Zondo, would be to pass the legislation that is pending before Parliament for the establishment of the Chapter 9 institution that Glynis Breitenbach has in mind. That seems to me to be the way to go.
Yeah, can you come in there on that particular question, Mbuyiseli? Good to have you as well this evening. the overlaps that some seem to have raised with this particular commission, that there are other institutions within maybe government that could have handled this. If you look at the terms of reference, if you look at the powers of the commission, is there any other body like Parliament that could similarly do the same work that this commission is going to do? Or is there something in this commission that is particularly unique that will allow it to do a better job?
Good evening, Thabo, and good evening to my fellow panelists and to the viewers at home. I think there is a lot of work that is overlapping between the Commission and other institutions of the state. But to echo what Paul has just mentioned now, that the Commission of Inquiry is a tool by the executive to deal with a major public issue, to find the facts surrounding a major public issue. And so, first of all, we need to scratch out the word judicial commission of inquiry. It's not a judicial commission of inquiry. It has to do with the executive. And what this commission, I think, will do, and when you read the terms of reference, is that it lists about 8 institutions which must be investigated, including the judiciary. Some of those allegations that have been put forward by General Mkhwanazi can be investigated by the police. There are criminal elements that he alleges. But because the police themselves are involved, the Commission of Inquiry does give an opportunity for some of that information to be ventilated out, to be very clear about who are the role players, and some of the recommendations that will come from the Commission of Inquiry, even at its interim report, can immediately be actioned. And for our interest as Judges Matter, we actually are particularly interested in the terms of reference as they relate to the judiciary. General Mkhwanazi has made allegations that there are some judicial officers who might have been part of some of the allegations. And even in the terms of reference, it's very clear that the judiciary, including magistrates, are implicated and must be investigated. And there's also a line in the terms of reference that says, if there are leaders within the judiciary who either abetted some of what has happened in terms of the criminal infiltration, or they ignored the warning signs. So that information is vital to get institutions like the Judicial Service Commission and the Magistrates Commission to step in and do their work. If the Commission of Inquiry can, even at its interim report, can surface those allegations, including the supporting and underlying facts and evidence, then it can spur action from those institutions. And I think that's how this commission is meant to work. It's not supposed to work in isolation. It can't prosecute anyone. It can't suspend or discipline anyone. But it's supposed to surface those allegations and facts so that the proper state institutions can kick into gear.
Yeah. Jot your memory a little bit. I'm sure it's still fresh in your head. But looking at the wideness of the work that this commission would need to do, the SAPS, I think 3 metros that need to be investigated, the NPA, state security itself, correctional services, members of the executive and any other players, including the judiciary. If you look at that scope of work, look at the size of the team, look at the experience of the team, and think about what would have happened in the previous state capture commission and the challenges as far as those legal teams and the size of the team that was assembled at the time, whether you think this is doable. But you can give me that response after the break. 07211055584. Send us your WhatsApp questions and comments, or call us on 010-594-6010. Engage with us on X at Newzroom 405. We'll continue in a moment. Stay with us. Back with you on the Newsfeed PM Late Edition. WhatsApp messages already coming through. Some of your views on the commission that has already been set up. Derek Ngubane is saying Independent Institute would be the best ever candidate for this inquiry. Nothing is trusted from the ANC. That's Derek there. Much appreciated for that. And Anonymous saying, greetings. Madlanga inquiry must deliver tangible outputs, followed by arrests, lifestyle audits on a quarterly basis on 3 spheres of government to include the SAPS members, and more jails to be erected, and more raids must be conducted. Some of the suggestions on how this should certainly be handled. Right, Mbuyiseli, let me bring you in there on that question I asked earlier on. I mean, considering how wide this investigation and consultation has got to go, with the judge already saying it does not appear that he will be able to do it in 6 months, saying the timeline appears to be quite tight. Looking at the size of the team, the experience in that team, do you think they'll be able to pull it off?
I think they will. And I do so because of three things. First of all, the terms of reference are quite wide in terms of their scope. But already Justice Madlanga indicated today that the first person that they will consult is obviously General Mkhwanazi to get a sense of some of the issues that he's laid out. And I think that's a good place to start in order to sort of draw a much more narrower and focused inquiry. Second of all, it must remain an inquiry, so it must be inquisitorial. It must not attempt to be a trial, and it shouldn't try to be everything to everyone, because I think that's the first recipe of a failure, that it will try to go too deep and not simply inquire into the facts so that the other state institutions can take over. But something I also noticed in the list of people who are put in as team members, they include people like Advocate Matthew Shalskelson, who was involved in the Zondo Commission and did some of the investigation relating to the security services. So he'll be very much familiar with the intelligence agencies and the rot that happened in the intelligence agencies. Advocate Baloyi worked in the group forensics investigations in Johannesburg, and how that itself, that municipality functions, and some of the problems that were there. So if you're looking at the institutions like the Metro Police departments, you do have someone on the team who understands that nature of the work. So already within the expertise of the team, there are people who can help the commission hit the ground running. And that's why I think in the 3 months, if it is strategic and focused and does an inquiry instead of a trial, I think there can be a lot of ground that is covered, and it will at least answer some of the initial questions. Like I said, if the commission prioritizes the judiciary, which is a relatively small institution of all the 8 that are listed in the terms of reference, the judiciary is probably small, and particularly because General Mkhwanazi mentioned that it is in Gauteng, in one province. There could be initial investigations that surface the information that is needed for their other institutions like the Judicial Service Commission and the Magistrates Commission to continue and do proper disciplinary work, including suspensions if they are needed, and other disciplinary action that is taken. So if it is focused and fast, it can cover a lot in the 6 months. But yes, it is quite a wide scope. So I imagine there might be an extension, even though we all hope it doesn't get to an extension.
So, Wayne, somebody would have done a study. I mean, maybe you might know better, but I see it in one of the publications here that the Nugent Commission would be one of the cheapest commissions in democratic South Africa at about 8.8 million rands at the time. And it's one where the response from government would have been the quickest in terms of implementing the findings and the recommendations of that particular commission. Others are saying, well, because it would have had dire implications for SARS, I mean, and its ability to secure taxes, hence there was some kind of action. What needs to be attached to this commission so that we can certainly see action if we are going to be spending in the millions?
Yeah, there was one of the quicker ones and the lowest priced ones, or lowest cost. I think what we need to do, and what we didn't see in the Zondo Commission, was see parallel action start to take place. There was almost this case of waiting to see all the evidence coming out, and then a very slow response, even though the president has put out some report to indicate that they've done quite a lot. It's still far from where they should have been at this stage. And so what we would like to see is, running parallel to this, the NPA and those who aren't implicated to start gathering evidence. I mean, this was an explosive expose, and there's a lot of evidence there already. So get the information. You don't have to wait for the end of this commission. Start the charges now, if there's enough there, and allow the rule of law to flow and take its course in a parallel to this commission. So it's not a case of having to wait for the outcomes. We can start working on holding people accountable from day one, quite frankly. The evidence is there already, as Mkhwanazi's put out. So we want action, and we want action swiftly. We just see this lethargic, laborious process where people continue to walk the streets that have been implicated in clear corruption years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, and still nothing happens. This is what frustrates society now. So we need to see faster action.
Doc, the criticism from politicians. All right, before I take you, Doc, let me take a caller. Simpiwe is calling us in Durban. Hi, Simpiwe.
Hey, Chavo, how are you, my brother?
I'm well. I hope you're well too.
No, I'm 100% fine. That's the problem we're facing in this country. We are okay, but the security cluster is just a mess. To answer your question, the truth is the security cluster of this country is disarray. This is just an opinion that can be tested on the ground. So about the inquiry, I believe one way of making sure that you don't have noise in this country, you must introduce something that will take longer, which is the Commission of Inquiry. But if you really, really want to transform the security cluster of this country, you must do a total overhaul of the security cluster. You can go back, Thabo. You had the National Commissioner who was charged, two of them, the Provincial Commissioner in the province who was charged. There is a serious problem in the security cluster. Therefore, personally, I don't have belief in the commission. It's just one thing that the ruling party is doing to make sure that this noise comes down and stuff. But as I learned, this matter, unless the commission is being pressured by public people, participations, mass mobilization, and a clear political commitment to overhaul the security cluster from top to bottom.
Right.
Until then, it's the same theater, different stage. Thank you.
It's a theater, and it's just to silence the noise, saying overhaul of the entire security cluster. I'll hear what Advocate Hoffman has to say about that. But Doc, let me just bring you in here. 1 billion rand is what is estimated to have been spent in the last Commission of Inquiry. But most of the criticism that comes from politicians is that there has not been one arrest. I mean, we have seen arrests. Whether they were linked to the state capture and whether it's significant people that would have been arrested is of course a question that is still out there. But what do you think could be the solution to, I suppose, dealing with that kind of criticism?
We cannot put a price tag on correcting a system. In fact, the financial argument from a cost and benefit point of view has fallen through the cracks every time that the response comes that, yes, indeed, we lost about 1 billion. But if you look at what was recovered, the amounts, when I was looking at the report, I think 2 weeks ago, I haven't seen this latest one by the president, was that in terms of what's been recovered, it ranges from, I think, about 8 billion and more. So we shouldn't attempt to justify a cleansing of the system on the basis of an ROI defined in business terms. Here, for example, the first problem you're going to have is that what would have been the cost of keeping things as they were, and factor that over time of because remember, this is social political phenomena. For every moment that you have rogues remaining in the system, you are incurring costs. You don't start incurring costs when you start spending towards a commission of inquiry that's meant to help you to deal with the issue. Lieutenant General Mkhwanazi explained a whole lot of other things beyond the political dynamic of his expose. He talked about the value chain, sorry to use that word, of the flow of drugs in South Africa, from which ports, where they are controlled. And we know how huge a problem drugs are in the country. What price will you put to uncovering the true nature of what enables that economy, illicit economy in South Africa, and actually kills many dreams of young people? You can't. It goes beyond the politicians who are involved. Also, I think that we must stop relying on politicians as some messianic figures who are going to resolve all of our problems. The beauty about living in a democracy is that a general in a province comes up, has a media conference, and as a result of that, media institutions, the fourth estate, academics, and a whole range of players come into the fore, into the fray, and shape the extent of the response. So that by that I'm saying there must be greater reliance placed on the system itself, and indeed the commission doesn't put a moratorium on the general work of all the law enforcement agencies that are there. If the commission wasn't there, who would South Africans trust to investigate, to take the matters that General Mkhwanazi spoke about forward? Because everybody is implicated in the way that this thing has come in the fore.
All right, Doc, got to take a break there. That is Dr. Ongama Mtimka still with us. When we return, we'll wrap up this panel discussion and get some of your thoughts as well after the break. Stay with us. Thanks for staying on, and the Newsfeed PM Late Edition continues now with our panel discussion on the formation of that Madlanga Commission of Inquiry that has now earnestly begun its work. And of course, we are asking your comments and your thoughts, and some have been coming through certainly with recommendations on 072-110-5584, calling us as well on 010-594-6010, or otherwise on X at Newzroom 405. We'll wrap up with some of those thoughts as well tonight. All right, we've got Cunningham calling us. Cunningham, hi. Good evening, brother.
How are you?
I'm well. I hope you're well too. What are your thoughts tonight?
Tawa, I've been thinking about the way we handle issues in this country. Where Justice Tulare on the same issues this General Mkhwanazi was talking about in the Western Cape. Of gangsters sitting in the same room with the police commissioner in the province, which Mary Diash says General Mkhwanazi is doing the same thing in KZN. That was 4 years ago. Now, my question is, what would Justice Madlanga do if they have not listened, this country could not listen to a judge in the Western Cape, talking about gangsters 28, 26, being involved with police, judges, magistrates, and prosecutors? It was a big issue.
So you believe that there is nothing that he will be able to come up with from this inquiry
if
that
you
will
didn't listen to Judge Tulare.
Yeah.
Because Mkhwanazi himself is involved in the Western Cape in the same way the Commission of the Western Cape was condemned by Justice Tulare.
Yeah. So you're saying there might be even counter allegations on the
Mkhwanazi, yes.
General Mkhwanazi, yeah.
Yes, Meriti Hasso has written on violence.
Yeah.
He is accusing him of corruption.
Right. So some of those things certainly going to be coming out from this commission. But Advocate Hoffman, let me bring you here. We would have heard in November the head of the NPA saying that the work of capturing the NPA had been a stealthy and lethal attack on the rule of law from within the organization, which has been worsened, of course, by what she says, the impact of resource constraints. So is it unfair to then assume indeed that this particular commission is going to suffer the same fate? Should it pass the first hurdle of the Constitutional Court where the MK party is taking this commission to, and actually get to a point of even 6 months, 8 months, or whatever months it is that it will take? Advocate Hoffman, I think you're muted there. Oh,
Still muted.
Okay, we seem to have a challenge with your connection there. I'm not quite sure if...
there we are. I'm back.
All right, there you are.
I didn't even realize I had any control over a mute button, and certainly I didn't mute it myself. Not a problem. Look, let's not put too much store by this commission of inquiry. Mbuyiseli mentioned earlier that to call it a judicial commission of inquiry is a misnomer. It just happens to be presided over by a judge, but it doesn't have to be. And the judge is not wearing his judicial robes and does not have his judicial authority. What a commission of inquiry is required to do is study its terms of reference carefully, establish the facts relating to those terms of reference, and then make recommendations to Cabinet or to the President as to the way forward. Now, the findings of fact of a commission of inquiry bind nobody. And the recommendations are recommendations of the take it or leave it kind. You're not obliged to follow the recommendations of a commission of inquiry. Now, if you look at those limitations, you swiftly realize that the optimum outcome of this commission of inquiry is that the baddies will be identified and the criminal justice administration will be harnessed to get after them. The problem is that we did that already in Zondo, and we're still waiting for the orange overalls to be donned and worn by those identified in the findings of the Zondo Commission of Inquiry. Instead, we have a whole lot of reviews pending where people fingered by the Zondo Commission are now challenging the findings of fact made against them, which is their entitlement. They go on judicial review, and the matter gets dragged out for several years longer.
Yeah.
And of course, when it comes to the implementation, we got a report from Chief Justice Zondo in mid-22. We are now in mid-25. And the president is proudly boasting that 48% of the findings, I don't know how you work out what 48% is. Do you do it by numbers or by value or what? But 48% is the number he's come up with. And he is saying that that is the extent of the implementation of the various recommendations of the Commission of Inquiry. And if you look at what they did in relation to beefing up the administration of public procurement, you can see that they weren't prepared, even in relation to the procurement system. They weren't prepared to have an independent body overseeing public procurement in South Africa, because they're allergic to this idea that anything outside the control of the executive should be allowed.
Completely out of time. I'm going to leave it there. But Mbuyiseli, a quick wrap up, 30 seconds. Your thoughts on certainly the lessons learned around witness protection, and I suppose the terms of this particular commission emphasize that should certainly be prioritized.
Yes, so that's one of the unique things about this Madlanga Commission, is that it has an obligation as part of its terms of reference to protect witnesses. And that's quite important because you want to create a space where people can come forward and bring evidence that is dealt with. But to mention two practical things that did come out of Zondo, the Zondo Commission in relation to the judiciary. There were two judicial officers that were named in the Zondo Commission report. Both judicial officers, there was action taken against them. One is currently on trial for corruption. The other one is on the brink of impeachment. And so one of the things that the Madlanga Commission would help really if evidence that action is taken, even though the other areas, they might be slow, but when it comes to judicial officers, at least we can have faith that there will be action taken against them.
Let's leave it there. Much appreciated. Thank you all for coming through this evening. That's Dr. Ungama Timka, Wayne Duvenage, Advocate Paul Hoffman, and Mbuyiseli Benjamin. Your latest headlines when we continue next. Stay with us.